So we'll call finance meeting to order at 8:06. All members present. And Mr. Sappington, would you like to start us off again?
I can. Good evening, City Council, folks at home, folks in the room. I wanted to start with, I know I sent the committee not as much material as last time, but a good bit of material. Does anybody have any questions before I start?
Right ahead, we'll ask as we go along.
I wanted to see if there was any easy ones, but
No,
apparently none.
no, this is finance, we don't work that way.
The first one is easy. So in 2020, 2021, the City Council finally restarted a dormant unclaimed funds process. Process is simple, actually much simpler than most of our neighbor cities. You get a check sent to you by the city, you then cash it. At the end of the year, we will put it in unclaimed fund. We will notify anyone with a $50 and 1 penny or higher balance. We have to notify in writing. Of course, we try our best to give phone calls or anything as well. And if you do not come and claim your unclaimed funds, which are also posted on the website and advertised, it gets moved to the unclaimed. It's unclaimed funds that go into the unclaimed fund, which was not appropriately named many years ago, long before any of us were here. And then it gets transferred to the general fund. So that's a long way of saying that there's $1,968.51 in the unclaimed funds from 2020 and 21. And I need council to authorize transferring it to the general fund.
I'm fine with that.
I have no issue.
No issue.
Okay. And so anything we discuss, you'll keep the notes to do the ordinances to bring it forward, right?
Yep, I can do that.
So there's one.
One
I
down.
apologize, what was the amount of names, please?
It's $1,968.51.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in these emails you sent out, right?
That's right. It was point number 1, although it's not actually a bullet point, so maybe that's a misnomer. The second is, one of our audit recommendations for this year was to establish federal as well as general procurement policies. We have no such thing. We do have a very strong and lengthy ARPA procurement policy that we worked with the county on in 2022. You guys might remember, it went to you guys maybe 21, 22. However, when we passed it, it specifically said ARPA. So the auditor said that only applies to ARPA funds, even though it is actually a federal procurement policy. And it's going to be one of our recommendations to implement.
So can we just delete ARPA from the other ordinance and?
I was thinking we could broaden it out. I was gonna get the committee's
How
opinion.
silly of it ask.
I was gonna get the committee's opinion. Can we get a draft of just a general federal procurement policy? A procurement policy basically says these are the policies that have to be followed for purchasing, including in projects. So for example, anything over 50,000 has to be bid. Anything related to the city, council members, business, so on and so forth, cannot be involved. Disclosure requirements, documentation requirements. It's like 40 pages.
I think we might know someone who might be a resource on this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you talk about this procurement policy, but as I studied on it, that is not a have-to thing. This is something that you want,
Nope. This is a recommendation from the state auditors.
but it's not a have-to.
It
They're
is,
not telling you, you have to do this, because that's not the way I read it.
no, actually they are. So this works 3 different ways with the state auditors. This works 3 different ways with the state auditors. The first is a verbal. The verbal is not really verbal, like any verbal. The second is a recommendation. And the third is a write-up, or what's called a significant deficiency. So this is a stage 2 of those 3 stages. So if we fail to implement the policy, next year, more than likely, they will make it a significant deficiency on our audit.
Okay, where could I find that information?
Well, when they publish the audit, when they publish it later this fall, it'll be in there, black and white.
Is it possible that you could, provide everyone here with copies?
Yep, it's
That would be great.
public and on the website as soon as it's published.
Okay, who handles procurement right now?
Federal procurement is a complicated game a little bit.
No. Who handles it for Nelsonville, your office? Who handles it?
It's not always my office.
Okay, explain to me who it is, please.
So sometimes it is the city manager and the engineer. So for example, the wastewater treatment plant project is not managed by the auditor. It is managed by the city manager and the engineers.
Okay, but that's just one thing.
It is just one thing. It is 20-some million of our $20-some million in federal funding this year. So it is the thing.
And that's these purchase orders that you had sent out earlier, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I printed all them off.
So does this relate just to procurement relating to federal monies that we get, or is this for anything we purchase as a city?
We should start with federal, just because that's the recommendation.
Okay.
So the auditor's recommendation is that our policies do not match the requirements in the grants and loans that we signed many years ago. Mostly because those policies don't exist. So that's an easy recommendation to make, is what I'm getting at.
So do we need separate policies for federal monies, state monies, our own monies, or can we do one overarching policy that will cover all of it?
That's a good question. I imagine you could have a procurement policy with a federal provision, as long as it matches. It's called the CFR, I believe it's called CFR 109 requirements, which is the federal requirements. I would think you could do that. But I didn't ask the question, so I'm gonna have to ask.
What documentation do you have that says we need to do this?
It's in our grant requirements for our USDA grants.
Okay, but we've gone all these years and it's never been done. Why?
That's a good question. I don't know. When we made the ARPA procurement policy last year, we thought we were implementing a full federal policy because it meets all of the guidelines. However, our ordinance states ARPA instead of federal.
So it's just the name thing that's the big deal?
If it had not said ARPA, we would have not gotten the recommendation. I know it sounds, listen, this is audit season. You guys are about to get avalanche of recommendations from the state auditors. It happens every single year. And this is one of the easy ones.
Okay, doesn't Judy handle the procurement?
Judy, so federal procurement? No.
Who handles that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding. So I just said, so for our federal projects, the city manager and the city engineer.
Yeah, because that's the way it is in some of these that I looked at. It has a signature of the city manager and DOZ on it.
That's right.
But
Yeah, it doesn't have the auditor's signature.
No.
on it.
Doesn't it have to go through that office though to get they can just smell it out?
We have to pay it once the funds would come to us,
Right.
but that's a payables policy. Procurement is who are you getting your stuff from?
And you don't have that information now.
Which I feel like,
I'm sorry, you just said this sets up a system to tell you who it is you're gonna have to pay, is that correct?
not necessarily who to pay, it creates a framework for any future contractors for purchasing under federal funding requirements. So Kirk Brothers is our contractor at the wastewater treatment plant. They were hired by the city to do the plant. Nobody from the city sits down there and says, you have to buy here, not here, but this, not that. Kirk says, we'll get it from anybody. Well, unfortunately, the problem is that Kirk's incentive, and they've done nothing wrong, so I really shouldn't use their name. I should just say the contractor's incentive is to do the easiest, cheapest, and not necessarily the most transparent option. The federal procurement policy tells all all contractors on federal projects, federally funded, that these are Nelsonville standards for what you're gonna do. So for example, please do not hire a council person's family member, or please do not evade bidding requirements, for example, when you're procuring these items.
So is this gonna be a program that's gonna have to be bought?
No,
You have the information for the system now that you can just go right into it.
yeah, Justin's suggestion was probably the best suggestion. Could we change the title of the legislation and the policy because it already matches the requirements? And I believe the answer is yes.
So basically, we just need to make a policy on how our contractors purchase or spend their money on federal projects that coincide with the rules set by the government.
I have a question. Does the current policy have anything in there that states to the contracts, whoever the city is gonna hire to do X work? Does it have something in there that says you must hire, not, what is it? No, not the cheapest. They must live within the area, whoever is gonna do the work. The reason why is because a lot of the projects that have gone on, they have hired people from out of state that come to our town. They get wages paid here, which technically they should be paying income tax on those wages because they are made here in Nelsonville. And that is what Nelsonville does to everyone else. But because they don't live within the area, they get to go home to their state and take 100% of their earnings. And we don't get any of that back. If we hire people from the area, or we specify in whatever contract you're talking about, that whoever they hire must be within this area, then that would eliminate that. And it should also specify that anyone working on any contracts in Nelsonville are required to pay income tax on whatever money they earn while on the job. And if that is not in there, it should be.
So this is a two-part answer. The first is, I don't know of any bid for any of our projects recently from a company within 100 miles.
Probably, Weather would be the closest.
Yeah, I don't know.
There
of anyone
was
who
a
bids.
gentleman who was, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a gentleman that was painting or putting in plugs, something along those lines. I don't remember the exact. This gentleman lived in Louisiana. And he got the contract because he was the cheapest person. So he basically came up here, had 1 or 2 other guys with him, and they took all that money back home. Nelsonville didn't ever see a dime. That is what I'm talking about. Because, you know, I realize that as citizens, you know, our taxes should be going to help run the city. Obviously, that's why we pay taxes. But what I've seen in the short time I've been here is, oh, we need more money, so hey, let's increase the taxes. Oh, let's increase the water bill. Oh, it's only $1. Sure, it's only $1, but there are people here who cannot afford to pay the bill they're already getting without increasing it yet again. When there are other ways to bring in money to the coffers other than just doing the easy thing and raising stuff for the citizens. That is an easy way. Make sure it's in the contract and then make sure that they have paid.
And that's on us as council and city manager.
Exactly.
That's not the auditor's job to do that, but I don't disagree, absolutely.
No, I'm not saying it's his job. I'm
Right.
saying he was talking about the wording in the contract or whatever. I'm saying if it's not there, it should be.
I sat in on one meeting out of the sewer treatment plant when they had all the contractors there.
Right.
And I can't give you the specifics of it because it was a meeting that was all kinds of stuff I didn't understand. But they were talking about the tax packets this is a federal job overseen by, and the money is being collected. So,
I will say, I wanted to add to that, for any city-run project, I asked the city manager and engineer for time at the beginning of the first, what they call pre-construction hearing, to make them aware that we are very serious about collecting the income taxes. Unfortunately, some subcontractors have gotten through because they don't come through the city, and I think that may be what this story is referring to as a subcontractor. And unfortunately, we've had other problems with the contractor who hired them
Right.
on that project.
So you do know the project I was talking about?
I do. They were different problems than tax problems, but it's the meter project is what she's referring to.
Oh, gosh.
It should have finished in April of 2022, and it still goes on today.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is that, for example, the sewer plant project, because we were building the plan as we were going, as far as annexing the land and purchasing the lands, which didn't all happen on the same day. If those of you who might remember, it takes time. You have to wait for the county. You have to purchase from people. Moral of the story is there was more than a fair share of pushback on whether contractors should pay income tax. And I was very clear for a very long meeting with all of them that it would absolutely be the case.
But
because
was
that
it in
city-
writing? If
Yes.
it was not in writing, it should have been in bolded in very large caps.
Fortunately, it doesn't even have to be in the contract because it's in our city code. And I
True.
told them we would absolutely enforce it.
So how does the regional income tax agency factor into that?
You know, so the Regional Income Tax Agency fortunately has access to state and federal tax returns that we're not allowed to see. They don't allow any city in the state to see because I guess if you're just far enough down the ladder, you should be higher up the ladder, I guess. So when they do that, they are able to take income from the different zip codes on their federal and state tax returns and say, hey, you went through these cities as a contractor and we don't see where you paid for income tax. And that's really one of the top benefits of RETA. There's been a lot of misinformation spread about the program as if like they've taken over the entire process. The best part, the best strength is enforcement.
And we have that program, right?
And we have that. We have that in our first year. So, questions on the procurement policy?
Okay, so you guys already set up again?
I have a draft. I mean, we have the draft that council's already passed, but council will have to pass new language. And I can send that to you guys if you want to see. I can also send you other cities, villages.
Okay, so who will be in charge of writing this program?
So it won't be a program, it'll be a policy. So anytime a project receives federal funds, they will have to refer to that policy for their purchasing practices.
But who will oversee it? I mean, obviously somebody has to keep track, right?
I'm really trying to explain strongly that the city manager and city engineer manage all federal projects,
which is DLZ.
which is DLC. Council can change it anytime.
Yeah.
But it is currently
DLZ is all
DLC.
through these contracts and purchases and the city manager's signatures on them.
What's almost ironic about it is that DLZ has procurement policies for their projects, that to work with them, contractors have to abide by a certain set of standards. So it's not that the city is left unprotected, the city just doesn't have their own standards for federal projects.
So we could.
But by signing the bottom line for federal funds, we have agreed to make one. So we should make one.
And so that was my point, there is not a policy in place.
That's right, the city's policy doesn't exist.
So we need something that would basically match DLZ's, what they,
Yeah,
more or less.
yeah, essentially. And there's 2 federal standards and 1 state standard. As long as it matches those,
I feel like it's pretty boilerplate, so.
it is.
Cool. Okay, anything else on that? Okay. Next item.
Next item. let me skip down, and we're gonna come back up, because the rest are all a bunch. The appropriation for the water project. We have a phase 3 water project that is beginning to get underway. Phase 2 was the meter upgrades. Phase 1, testing my memory, it was replacing water lines and a number of other things. That's why Jason should have stayed. He could have told you exactly what phase 1 was. So we were anticipating that those funds would go directly to the contractor. That's how the OWDA prefers their funding. It goes directly to the contractor, and then the city must pay the engineering side. That's not what happens. OWDA says they want the funds to pass through the city, and then pay the contractor. Just like any other pass-through fund, the city needs to appropriate those funds, and I can update what's called our certificate of resources with the county auditor and the budget commission. And we can begin to pass through those funds from our state funding to phase 3 water project.
So the state will give us the money and then we pass it along to the contractors.
That's right. It's not one single dime of city money.
Quick question. I'm trying to understand, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but I'm trying to understand what you're saying. First you said the whatever prefers to pay the contractor directly.
Mhm.
And then you said, but now they want to give us the money and have us pay them.
That's right.
Why? Did they give a reason why all of a sudden they changed? They want this? Are they doing it everywhere? Or
I don't know the answers to those questions. One of the things you learn about state and federal agencies is, how do I say this? They don't apologize and they rarely explain.
I understand that because I've worked for the state. So that is why I'm questioning that, because state usually, I don't know Ohio as much, but Texas, usually the states are very controlling. That's why they do 1 million audits. So for them to, having done this all this time, where they have absolute control of the funds, by then taking the funds, passing it to the contractors, isn't that what you said? They pay the contractor
I
directly?
didn't say all the time. I said they prefer. So they actually do a mix of both. They do a mix of both. But we were expecting this project would be direct to DB Weber, who you brought up a few minutes ago. But that's not what happened. They sent the money to us and would like us to pass it through. I will say pass through from the state funding agencies often is a control mechanism. They force another set of eyes to review every invoice, another set of eyes to review the what's called project estimate. But yeah, there was some set aside in the water fund. If you go to our expense report, it's called a water upgrade project, 721. We had set aside, I believe, 250,000 because we expected just the engineering funds to come through there. But that's not the situation that we find ourselves in. And I talked with the engineer about it. He said it's just their decision and a matter of passing it through.
Okay, so they evidently have sent us the money.
That's right. They send, it's how I explain this, it's a draw process. So each month the contractor says, this is what we've done to the city manager and the city engineer, and it must be submitted for approval to them and the state. And so it's a draw process. They sent 2 months worth of money to us. And
So what kind of money?
it will be, the project's a $6 million project, but 2.5 million of it will pass through, according to the engineer's estimates, before December 31st.
So how much have they sent of the money that you want to now transfer? How much is that?
The first month was 335,000, and the second one was 316, 18. I can get you the exact numbers on it.
Yeah, I think it's, 318,579.
And 311.
To DV Weber Water Improvement Project Phase 2.
Yep.
And then the other one was 311,502.
That's right. This will be just one of like 4 pass-through projects we have going on right now. It's an exceptionally busy time for the city.
Mhm.
Does this cost us or save us any money? Or is it just an annoyance to the employees?
The running through the city part, I wouldn't call it annoyance. It doesn't save us any money, unfortunately. Yeah. It does cost a little bit more time.
So my wife, who's a project manager for Ohio Health, just texted, because she's one of the 5 people watching right now. Let you know, I'll be home soon.
5, what a champ.
She said it's called a pay application from the contractor. The architect and the engineer should review and certify that the work they are saying has been completed. It is completed, so
That's
like you said, it's another set of eyes, it sounds like, so I'll defer to her wisdom on that one, so. Just because I'm smart.
It's the same
I'll let
setup.
her when I get home, so.
It's the same setup for the sewer plant project. It'll be the same setup for our upcoming Canal Street as well as Washington Street project.
Mhm.
It's just with OWDA, this particular funding agency, the last one was direct to the contractor, this one is not. So I don't know if it's the fund amount or what their standard.
So do we need to create a line item for that then?
There is a line item, just needs increased.
Okay.
So the engineer estimated 2.5 million would pass through in that state funding. I believe it's all principal loan forgiveness. Yes, principal forgiveness loan. I said that backwards. Although it's always safest to defer to Michael Betts' judgment because he knows this stuff like the back of his hand.
So this is $2.5 million of money we're getting from the federal government. It's not costing us anything. We're paying contractors.
That's right, state.
Awesome. Okay, state money, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
That's it on that one.
Okay. Next.
The next one are your monthly updates to then and nows. So we talked about this at the last meeting, and the meeting before that. And this is also a recommendation from the state auditor, something we didn't start doing. They were going to move to a significant deficiency in future years. I spoke with 2 auditors ago who was at the meeting, and she said they had never asked the city to do this. And I talked to the city of Logan current auditor, and the auditors also cracked down on them. So I'm not judging auditors, one auditor to another, but they are in many ways an important stakeholder in what we do here, and especially in my office. So if they recommend it, and it seems safe, I'm going to do it. So I've suggested to you folks to begin approving then and nows. It was in the gray whether project-related items had to be sent for council's approval. And the answer from the chief auditor was, it's usually best to be safe. So I've included them here. We've also set up a purchasing process that will prevent that from happening in the future. So as soon as we get these through the pipeline, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 in the future, the project-related ones should be covered, because we like improving every day. So those here, the project-related ones, you'll see Washington Street project work, DLZ wastewater treatment plant project phase 3, the 2 DB Webbers we talked about, a payout for the Kirk Brothers wastewater treatment plant project, as well as United Rentals and Master Meter. And these are not, again, I just want to remind the committee, you're not necessarily approving these purchases. You're not responsible for these purchases. These are project-related expenses. They've already been incurred. These parts of the project are done in the ground, built, whatever they were paying for. It's just that they are asking the council to review them on the back end because of the timing.
That master meter water improvement, is that project now completed?
I wish it was.
No, it's not yet.
That's the meter project.
Yeah. Okay, still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Every day I feel like I'm reaching out to them saying, where is this? What is that? And I'm not the project manager, so I think we're all on their butts. But first, I shouldn't name them in a public meeting. The contractor has been very difficult. You could ask the current city manager, the last one, the service director. engineer, it has been, I don't think we would pick the same.
Yeah.
The meters work great. I don't want to cast any doubt on the meters. They don't build the meters. It's just been a matter of organization of, are you done with this street? Oftentimes they will just say yes, and it's not done. So we have to go back and get that done. And of course, they're electronic meters, so there's no reason to say something's done because we can say from our computer
It's easy to check.
You see it.
that it's not done. Anyhow, I'm already saying too much because I don't manage that project and I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Right.
Just keep an eye on it.
We're doing. Well, this master meter one was particularly aggravating for me. I just want to give a little insight to how some of these things happen. Master meter issued this invoice. This is a yearly service fee, or I'm sorry, a setup fee for the electronic software for the electronic meters. Master meter said, your project's not completed, so we're not going to charge you until it's done. However, sometimes left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So left hand says, you guys do not pay this until it's done. The right hand drops an email in my inbox and says, if you guys don't pay this, it will be shut off. Well, that's not good customer. Anybody working customer service? That's not good customer service. I said, I've got endless emails from you guys and phone calls where you say, don't touch it till the project's done because we don't charge our customers till it's done. And they actually called today and apologized, the project manager, so.
Good for you for standing up.
I was like, look, I will get council's approval so that when it's done, it's ready.
Yep.
But that is no way to talk to folks who are paying you $6 million.
Correct.
Anyhow, sorry, I'm off track. So those project related ones, I don't know if there's any questions or, again, it's essentially a review process. The invoices, purchase orders, draws are all included in your emails.
Yeah, so we're gonna see an ordinance come through for all this under the then and now.
That's right.
Which once again, it's none of our money. It's just, this is the pass through contract money, stuff's already done.
That's right.
Okay.
Is your wife still watching this?
She went to
bed.
Anything else on that?
I would just say, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just gonna say she's probably in the bed with the dog at the moment, so.
So there's 3 bullet points. It's actually the first and the 2 last ones. Those are gonna be what you would standard see then and nows. These are purchases that were not submitted for purchase orders at the time of purchase and came in late. So these are the real meat and potatoes of what the auditors are asking council to review. It's Ruston Electric, bonded chemicals, and iWork. And iWork only half counts because iWork is a yearly fee for our software, which is to say there was approval of a contract. But the other 2 are very specific. So the reason I'm saying this is to set expectations with you guys in the future. Once a month, you may see these types of things come in. Ruston Electric was for generator work. The generator work was done. Well, we've already been over the sore topic of not the department heads are not always submitting right on time or before as the procedure requires. But even in the example of this generator repair, which was an emergency, it sat for some time, several weeks, then was submitted. This is the type of stuff that the auditors want another set of eyes on. And I don't blame them because the procedure should have been followed. We've also been coaching, not to diss on our department heads. I don't have any major complaints right now, but we've been coaching, working with them. And we also, Judy and I signed up for trainings this fall about how to better set up purchasing to prevent this type of thing. So if the process is making somebody say, I really don't want to submit this, it's just, I don't want to do it, it's a hassle, whatever. Why is that? And it's always easy for folks to say, it's the individual. But as public servants, it's our job to say, maybe it's the process, and maybe it could be easier. So we've been working on learning that. For this one specifically, we actually, how this one developed, we signed up for a training in October, Judy and I, and we're excited to learn how other cities handle that process. So, excellent.
Okay, good.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That is it. And council's good with me sending those then and nows.
Yep, I'm fine with it.
I have no issue.
Okay.
He's talking about sending this down to the attorney, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Talk about-
Yeah, about paying bills.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Has anyone addressed the fact that our attorney doesn't? Never mind, I'm sorry, this is finance, I apologize.
Okay.
No problem.
All right, I have something then.
I knew it.
Yeah,
Is it budget?
budget for 24.
Yes.
I'm ready-
Update?
I'm ready to go. Where are we at?
Where are we at? So you guys have in your inbox a revenue projection.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
got it
same,
right here.
it's the same tool we've used for two years? 3 years now. And I laid out in that projection in the email, the steps for everyone. I think it might be the first time we put our budget process in writing, about where we go from here. So the revenue tells us how much fund each is likely to have. I also explain in the projection how the calculation is made. And I also put in there highlights, for funds that might need your attention. So we're in the first few steps of revenue projection. And from that point on, we will provide an estimate of how much payroll will cost each department. We work with them on issues like whether they're going to add a staff member or decrease or whatever the situation may be. But we often find payroll calculations are the hardest. It's a lot to ask of everybody to do that. So what we like to do is provide the breakdown for them so they don't have to do it themselves and they can see the math, tweak it however they want. And from that point, the department heads will begin building their expense budgets. And when they're done, first draft comes to you guys.
So you think they'll have the first draft done by this time next month?
Yes.
This time next month's too late.
End of September?
Yeah. Because I would like to see this budget done and passed before new council takes place in 1st of December.
So if they have it done and we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Well, that's what I put down on my note too is, unfortunately, to do this budget for 24, finance is going to have to meet a little more often than once a month through September and October. To be able to get this budget done. Is that a good assumption?
When we get to the right spot,
Yeah,
and the steps I try to explain that in the steps. There's an important part of the process where it depends on how happy you guys are with the numbers.
right.
Because the more you send the draft back to the department heads and I, the more we meet, the more we talk, the more we whatever. We can get to draft 7 and 8 if you want. It's really up to you. But yes. What do you, Greg, you guys tell me, what do you think you need a first draft of expenses in your hand? When do you think you need those? And we can try and make that happen.
Mid-September.
Ideally, a couple of weeks.
Yeah, mid-September.
Yeah.
I think we can do that.
Okay. So
And then meet again then at the end of September, after we get that one.
I'd like to meet before the second meeting. It's our regular council meeting in September. Meet about mid-September. Just
Yeah,
for a
that's,
quick,
yeah, right.
right. So we can have a quick review of it. And if we have questions, we can get it back to.
You're part of the pro on this issue.
No, I'm not. This is my first time doing it.
Oh, geez.
So,
He seems like a pro, doesn't he?
Beginner's luck.
but, so there's 3 areas of concern I have right now. One is the pool repair that we discussed earlier.
Yep.
Code enforcement office staffing
Yep.
and the utility employee.
Yep.
So I'd like to see that information in the first draft of the budget.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you guys have any additions to that, any questions?
I would just ask that when all this stuff comes up, I know you guys put it through the emails. I cannot print off of my phone. So I'm one of these hands-on people, and I would absolutely love it if I could have a black and white copy.
Yeah.
please.
Absolutely, we'll take care of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think, let me pick a date, Greg. Or let me suggest a date. You said mid-September. So fortunately, the mid of the month is a Friday, so the 15th. Is that 15th or 18th is probably best suggestion.
We have our council meeting on the 11th and then again on the 25th. So somewhere in between there. I guess that would line up, Justin, with what you're referring to. The 20th, the Wednesday of the 20th,
I can do that.
because that's the night we're gonna set aside for all committee meetings, right?
Now, I planned on the 27th.
27th. Oh, after, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, I think we need to do it before then.
I can do the 20th and then come back on the 27th. That way.
Yeah, that way we got, yeah.
With that.
My question to just make sure, would you, I was searching for the date for you guys to have a copy, because I imagine you're not gonna wanna sit down at a committee with the copy for the first time.
No,
So,
so to have that right after our first meeting in September, that second full week of September, have the first draft.
yeah, would the 15th work or?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make that the deadline.
Okay.
So are we setting up something besides the 20th? I mean, you said you wanted something in between there, between the 11th and 25th.
I think getting a copy of the preliminary.
Yeah, the first draft.
Right, so we wouldn't actually have a meeting at that point. We would have the numbers and everything in our hands.
Okay.
And then we'd come on the 20th.
Then we have basically almost a week to review the first draft, right? Then meet, and then meet again a week later.
Yeah.
Because you know, if we're gonna do the budget, we have to do it. I don't wanna pass it on emergency. So it's gotta set for 30 days.
Right.
That's why time is critical.
I apologize, I'll look at the wrong. You say the 27th?
That's the old.
Yeah, it is.
No, you can't go wherever it is.
Miss Megan's ball game that night.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll tell her you said that, Nancy. And my wife is not in bed with the dog, she just. If anybody's interested.
All right,
Well, I
well,
think she's lying, but
I think, you know, based off our conversations with them, a lot of the department heads know the direction already. I mean, that's why Jason's in a position to make the ask. He's able to. And I know the fire chief was here at the finance before last and was able to say he had a pretty good idea too, so.
and these guys have been through this before, so they'll be
Yeah, we're using the same.
versed in the process.
This is the third year of the same tool, so the learning curve is done and it's for all of us, I think, for everybody working with it. Cool. If I can give a quick, the high level of the budget is written in that Excel sheet off to the right, highlighted in yellow. These are the revenue projections. I guess if it's a black and white copy, it won't be yellow, but I try to break down the major funds: general, street, parks and rec, capital, water, sewer, and trash, sanitation fund. Most of them you'll see that what they can absorb as far as cost increase. General fund up to 3, street funds 3 to 5, because the gas tax is providing strong revenues. Capital fund can maintain. There's more words here for water, I'm sorry. There was a surprise in the water fund. Revenues, in the current projection, things could change. I suppose a bunch of folks could be behind on their water bill or gonna pay it, or I don't know. It's always hard to estimate in the middle of the year. But the water fund's actually coming in 4% under projections, which was a little bit of a surprise. It's also not a sky is falling situation. But I just wanted to bring your attention to it, that the water fund does not, the revenue. We gotta make sure we distinguish between revenue and the fund. The revenue did not grow this year. And then the sewer fund may allow for a 1 to 3% increase. based off mostly inflation.
But the water fund is healthy at the moment.
The water fund's quite healthy. So we've managed managed expectations and expenses very well, team effort between everybody. So that's why it's not a sky is falling. There was years where a 4% decrease in revenue for a water or general fund was a crisis. We had to cut for immediately in some years, many years ago, thankfully. But that is not 2024. I only highlighted in red one fund, and that was unfortunately the Parks and Rec. The revenues have not turned out. So
That would be the pool.
it would be the pool. The property tax, the rec levy has come in a little bit under, I believe it was 4.5%. But the primary miss was pool revenue this year. 2019, we collected $93,000 at the pool. And before anybody says, I know the pool's not here to make money. These are financial projections. This is not to make money, this is to operate the pool. But this year, the estimate comes in at $60,700. Wow, which is 2/3.
How's that compared to last year? Seems like our weather was a lot better this year than it was last.
It was better this year. Last year was short of 70. So last year was down
So
too.
we were down
We
from
had
last year. Then.
2 major misses.
Wow.
I wanted to, and I will provide, I was gonna give you guys a nice handy line graph to show what's happened in the pool revenue. If this was a normal, how do I say this? If council had not put the income tax in the rec fund, this would have been a issue that you guys were deciding on cuts this summer, right now. However, the income tax brings in $38,000 into that fund. So what's happened is that fund has maintained generally the revenues that it did. But that's not what the point of the income tax was there. It was to build up for future repairs, as Councilman Clement mentioned in a prior meeting tonight. So this is also not a critique of the pool. I want to make sure this is not a critique of management. There's none of those things. Folks shouldn't feel any type of judgment or any way about the numbers. The numbers just are the numbers.
Yeah, they're just black and
The
white.
way I see money at the city is money in versus money out, rates versus expenses. And that's really, it's just that simple. So I want to be careful and make sure everyone understands, especially if you're watching at home. This is not a critique of anyone, actually. This is just the numbers.
Mhm.
So just a quick, I'm looking at these numbers on the rental registration fee. It appears that there is uncollected 5,250
Yes, versus our projection.
because we don't actually know how many units there are.
Yeah, that's part of it. Part of it too is, and I'm searching for it here, I'm sorry. I had to leave my text so small, didn't I? Part of it too is the rental registration process is a partial year process. So it begins in late fall, winter, and goes into the next year because they're due January
January 30.
Sounds right.
31st, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, the hiccup. So what happens is that when the letters go out and collection begin for the rental registration in, I don't know, usually November, that some of that will trickle in and may make up that $5,000 difference.
Okay.
The bigger number to me, the top line number to think about here is the projection. We're projected to come in over our expectations. So 23,700 versus 21,500. However, Greg, I think you know better than anyone here that both of those numbers are not what you guys expected when you set the rate.
Yeah, the rates were set before me, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were on the planning commission when it happened.
No, I'm talking about when council, because it was set
Gotcha.
at 20 and then raised to 30.
Right. And when it was set at 30, at an expectation of, I believe, 1,100 rental units,
Yeah,
that would be
initially the number was 1,200, but
yes.
the last number, it was estimated we were down to 900 units.
I think it was 900 registered.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can tell you the money. I can't tell you for sure, but you know, I know council has brought up the registration process for legislation recently, council has to ask, is it that many rentals have left the market? Or are we missing some?
Are we missing?
Or is it some of both?
Yeah,
That goes back hand in hand to our original conversation tonight with code. Who's going to enforce this? So,
right,
tax
because,
revenue.
well, I believe the city manager is to enforce the rental. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I thought it's all hand in hand with code.
Yes,
It's with code.
yeah.
And I can tell you, because I wasn't there, that there are a lot of registered rentals that have not paid up till the time I left.
Yeah, and now they're subject to the penalty of $100.
Now it's going to be put teeth into it and
Yeah.
enforce it.
Exactly.
And we can't expect a part-time code officer to do that.
Back to my original conversation.
Absolutely, because
Full circle.
the rental registration fee was not designed to fully fund the department, it was to supplement it.
Correct.
So we got some issues to figure out there.
Yep, absolutely. And we will.
Okay, anything else?
I'm good, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
All right, we shall adjourn at 8:57.